4 drivers were sent to the rear of the field this week after receiving penalties at Mosport. Tyson Lautenschlager and Ricky Navarro are both in round 1. They will be starting from the rear of the field for causing avoidable collisions last week. And then for round 2, Lucas Hunter and Leigh Gurriel will be starting from the rear of the field because they were rather troublesome back markers at Mosport. In other news, Cletus McGuffey has received a 6-race suspension for driving while intoxicated last week. Officials grew suspicious when he swerved and threw his car off the track, and McGuffey was promptly suspended when he blew a .12 after the race. Now on to this weekend. There's been some concern about the likelihood of incidents down in Verdugo Raceway's third corner. It is a very tight and slow corner coming off of a steep downhill run, so officials have informed the teams that they will be very stingy with the yellow flag down in that turn. The race will not be interrupted due to minor spins and fender benders. And now I will hand it off to Scott for the race. Thank you, Earl. Anthony Griffith takes the Smash Beer Pole Award for round 1 here at the Verdugo Raceway, a 1.49-mile counterclockwise track shaped like a pizza slice. Griffith and outside pole sitter Laura Cyrus get equally good starts, and they duel down the front stretch and into the first corner, beginning the uphill run. Griffith and Cyrus are still neck and neck coming off of turn 1, but Cyrus gets a big run, and she eventually gets around Anthony Griffith on the outside, and Laura Cyrus will lead the first lap of the race. The first caution came out as the leaders began their second lap. Kurt Walker slams into the back of Michael Madrigal coming into turn 3, and just ahead of this, Kevin Monroe goes for a spin off the front bumper of DJ Daniels and then gets clobbered by Henrietta Laverne. Also in turn 3, Kyle Eckerton gets hammered by Hawk Slider coming into the corner, and then Mumba Kumengu gets into the back of the 070. 7 cars dropped out of the race due to this series of incidents in the third corner. Laura Cyrus leads on the restart with Anthony Griffith right behind her and Cyrus's teammate Allie Riggs in the third position. Cyrus got a good start at the beginning of the race, and here she is again getting a good run into the first corner as she keeps Anthony Griffith at bay. Alex Carson in the 28 is having one of his better runs of the year. Carson, who got his last win in 2009, has not been a very imposing force this season, but today he is running in 4th. Tyson Lautenschlager, who started in the rear of the field, did not do himself any favors by running into the back of Matas Kazimieras. Lautenschlager would have to pit to get his damage repaired. David Krikorian, Scott Morales, DJ Daniels, and Rip Tyler also pitted due to damage they received in various incidents in turn 3. Ryan Griffin is having a solid top 15 run in his second ARLa Elite Series start. A lot of the part-time efforts have been a force to be reckoned with this year, and Griffin's is no exception. And just a couple spots behind Griffin is Casey Campbell, another one of our strong part-timers. She finished 3rd at Talladega and ran up front at Las Vegas. But Campbell would be hit in the rear by Jason Teller, who then gets hit by Matas Kazimieras and goes sliding up the track. However, Teller would keep going. Then Rene Ricarmier hits his braking point going into turn 3, but Rachel Rainsford misses, sending the 0 round, and then Rainsford gets tangled with Tyson Lautenschlager and Lucas Sweeney. Ricarmier got his second win of his rookie season at Mosport last week, but he's going to have quite a challenge today. The second caution came out on lap 19 as Makoto Yamada in the 22 gets into Ryan Griffin coming into turn 3, and Tyson Lautenschlager gets into the back of the 22. Ryan Griffin goes sliding off the track at the exit of the corner, and so does Tyson Lautenschlager. Yamada was hammered by Jason Teller in turn 3 as well. Teller does not really have a lot of room to get onto the inside, and so he gets into the back of the 22. Your top 3 did not change during that green flag run. Laura Cyrus is still the leader with Anthony Griffith and Allie Riggs right behind her. This track does not seem to generate a whole lot of passing. The run down into turn 3 is your best passing opportunity. I think a lot of people are just putting their focus on not running into each other in that corner, and well, you can see how that's been turning out. Cyrus hits her braking point going into turn 3, but Anthony Griffith doesn't, and he gets into the back of the 08, sending her sliding up the track and out of the lead. Scott Morales and Alex Carson have also tangled in turn 3. What a tough break for Laura Cyrus, who has been spun out of the lead by another car for the second time this season. Here's the incident between Alex Carson and Scott Morales. Morales was hit by Bob Stevens going into the corner, and that shoved him into the 28. As they struggle to get going, Rene Ricarmier joins the party by clipping the 76 car. In the meantime, this has created a battle for the lead between Allie Riggs and Anthony Griffith. Rybert Scott is in third, looking to pounce if either of these drivers make a mistake. Riggs has a very slow entry into the corner, allowing Griffith to nose ahead, but she comes back off the corner and takes the lead of the race. This side-by-side battle really allowed Rybert Scott in the 33 to close up right there. Scott got his first career win in the second round of MoToRSPORTS last week. Laura Cyrus has fallen back to 7th. The exact same thing happened to her at Alaska. She was leading the race fairly late in the going when she was hooked and spun by Kevin Monroe, who went on to win the event. Rybert Scott takes second from Anthony Griffith. Since his win, it looks like Rybert Scott has gotten used to running up front, and here he comes, closing up the gap on Allie Riggs in the 19. Bob Steffens, despite getting tangled with Scott Morales, is currently running in the 4th spot. This team has not had too many good runs this year, so they should have something to smile about today. Casey Campbell has climbed up to 5th in the part-time Greaseburger car. Campbell is very anonymous in the ARLa Thunder Trucks, where she has put her focus on for this year, but in the Elite Series, she is exceeding expectations. So, in my opinion, she is a much better fit in this series as Laura Cyrus gives her a bump going into turn 3. Cyrus showing some very uncharacteristic aggression in her march back towards the front. Caution 3 came out on lap 31 as DJ Daniels, coming through turn 3, gets into Edwin Schwartzlowski and goes for a slide. I don't think that should have brought out the caution, but it was probably thrown because Daniels was at the very exit of the corner. The leaders pitted under this caution, and Allie Riggs came out on top, with Laura Cyrus jumping back up into second, and here she is making a move on her teammate for the lead going into turn number 1, 3 wide with lapped car Andy Pearson. But the 19 has more momentum coming off the corner, and Riggs keeps the lead. Anthony Griffith in the 00 is still in the 3rd spot and looking for a way to make a move. Coming into turn 3, Cyrus closes the gap once again, but Annie Pearson comes flying in and wipes out Laura Cyrus and Allie Riggs. Your top 2 have just been taken out of the lead by a lapped car, no less. Let's look at this from on board the 2 car. Andy Pearson completely blows his braking point and gets into the back of Laura Cyrus and shoves her into the 19, causing both cars to spin around. Pearson was promptly called to the hauler because this was a ridiculous mistake from the 4-time series champion. This would hand Anthony Griffith the lead on the restart with Philip Borland in the 2nd spot. He has come from out of nowhere to run up with the leaders. Casey Campbell in the 910 has also worked her way up to the 3rd spot. And here is Casey Campbell getting around Philip Borland for 2nd. Like I said earlier, Casey Campbell is probably a much better fit in the Elite Series, as she was a serious threat to win Talladega, and she is emerging as a serious threat to win today. Philip Borland's hopes go down the drain as he gets into the back of Casey Campbell going into turn 3. He would have to pit for that damage. Tough break for the A1 Racing team. They were on pace to have a good finish for once. Crashes and mediocrity have been plaguing them this year. Herbie Finkelberg in the 96 slams into the back of Bob Steffens in the 211. Finkelberg, who made his debut just a few races ago, has had nothing but great finishes so far, but that all comes to an end today, as he will have to pit to repair that car. Anthony Griffith builds up a huge lead over Casey Campbell. Experience seems to be prevailing so far, as Griffith has been competing in this series since 2006. He won in his debut at Darlington, so we know he has a lot of natural talent too. Rene Ricarmier has worked his way back up into the top 10 after getting caught up in 2 incidents earlier in the race. This is exactly why Ricarmier is the points leader in his rookie season. He has shown that he will not back down from a challenge that easily. As the race nears its closing stages, Anthony Griffith continues to build up his lead. Rick Tyler, Edwin Schwartzlowski, and Herbie Finkelberg are all a lap down. Rene Ricarmier and Allie Riggs have worked their way up to 2nd and 3rd. Casey Campbell is 4th. Alex Carson is 5th. Laura Cyrus still 6th. Bob Steffens 7th. Then Ricky Flush and Taylor Brillen, who did not have hoods on those cars. But then Allie Riggs causes the 5th caution when she smashes into the back of Rene Ricarmier coming into turn 3, taking them both out of 2nd and 3rd. With 3 laps to go, Anthony Griffith still leads on the restart. but you see that there are a lot of lapped cars between him and second place. So this is very good news for Anthony Griffith, who has not won a race since 2008. But then we get our next caution as the leaders begin their final lap. Alex Carson smashes into the back of Matas Kazimieras. They get together again and carry each other into the gate on the inside of the front stretch. Alex Carson was potentially looking at a top 5 finish, but that all goes down the drain on the final lap of the race. And in the meantime, Anthony Griffith will round the final corner to take his first win since 2008 and give Gravity Racing Inc. its first win of the year. Casey Campbell gets her best finish in only her 3rd start. I think she's going to be one of the drivers to watch out for in the future. Renee Ricarmier comes back to finish 3rd. Great recovery by the number 0 team. Laura Cyrus also made a great recovery to finish 4th, and Bob Steffens in the 211 finishes 5th. That is one of his better runs of the year. Ricky Flush finishes in 6th with no hood on that 31 car. Taylor Brillen also had her hood taken off. She finished in 7th. Kevin Monroe, after quietly hanging around in the top 10 all day, finishes 8th. And Allie Riggs, after getting into the back of Renee Ricarmier, fell back to 9th. And then rounding out the top 10, Alex Carson nurses his crippled car to the finish. He ended up being the first car 1 lap down. We now go over to round number 2, where Gary D'Souza has taken the Smash Beer Pole Award, with Damian Snyder qualifying on his outside. D'Souza gets a good start and moves up in front of Damian Snyder. Packer Carroll and Leslie Riggs fight for position going into the corner. Carroll gets a big run on the inside and challenges Snyder for 2nd. The first caution came out at the beginning of the 2nd lap when Namimura creates a big stack up by getting into the back of Toby Armstrong. The 39 and the 82 are sent spinning. Nico Petrov gets into the 39, and so does Paul Lyons. Kayla Bazel in the 672 goes for a slide as well. Gary D'Souza continues to lead on the restart. Leslie Riggs took the 2nd spot during that short run. Billy Bob Bradburn had a mechanical problem and brought the 04 car back onto the track 1 lap down. Bradburn is replacing Cletus McGuffey, who is serving his 6th race suspension starting this week, and his day has not gotten off to a great start. Siju Dejau in the 37 is having a good run so far until he overshoots his braking point and gets into Damian Snyder coming into turn 3, taking both cars for a spin. Dejau and Snyder lose several positions, and I don't think Snyder is going to be too happy with that 37 team after this. I don't think Dejau's team owner Tom Delgado is going to be too happy. He has been very vocal about how poorly Dejau has been doing this season. Bruce Wilkinson has a mechanical problem in the 7, and he pulls that car onto the apron. Jeremy West is going to become the next victim of turn 3 when Chuck Bloomers comes flying in and gets into the back of the 77, pushing him up into Todd Stater in the 150. Both West and Bloomers would have to pit for repairs. Derek Dudding returns to the track this week. When he arrived for opening practice, he said that he was lost in Canada for the last few weeks, and now it seems that he finally has a legitimate sponsor on that car. Eversorb Tampons have announced that they will step in and sponsor Dudding for a few races this year. Billy Bob Bradburn goes up in smoke, so a bad day for Backroads Racing gets worse as Bradburn has to drop out of the race. Wesley Savage is currently having a good run, but watch for the 73 car of Amy Patty. She comes flying into the back bumper of Todd Stater, and that pushes Stater into the 6th, and Nico Petrov goes for a slide in turn 3 as well. Tough break for Savage as he loses several positions. He's been needing some good runs this year. His first 3 starts of the season all resulted in DNFs. This is Jarko Forsstrom making his ARLa Elite Series debut for Great Lakes Motorsports, which also fields the 35 of Brian Griffin. The younger brother of Formula Overdrive competitor Mikko Forsstrom is giving that 38 car a very respectable top 20 run so far. Holden Roberts in the 165 misses his brake point going into turn 3 and slams into the back of Amy Harrison in the 102. Roberts has had several good runs in the past few weeks, but he is not going to get one today as he has to pit for repairs. Dan McCann, the 10, will also have to pit for repairs after getting into the back of the lapped car of James West. McKay will reportedly run the TM Master Cup race at Daytona, but this isn't going to look too good for his future boss. More problems for Greaseburger Racing as Phil Summers has the engine grenade on him. Summers has not been performing too well this year, and this isn't making things any better. AJ Young, who is off the pace as usual, gets hit in the back by Lucas Hunter. Going into turn 3, he saves the car, but then it blows up on him. The yellow flag comes out as he will come to a stop in the middle of the track. Gary D'Souza continues to lead on the restart. Leslie Riggs is still in second, but Packer Carroll has moved up to third. D'Souza has the lapped car of Rachel Gonzalez in front of him, but he quickly pulls to the right and gets by the 15. Gonzalez then decides to start holding up Leslie Riggs, and coming into turn 3, Jacob Eichholz comes flying in and smashes into the back of the 50 car. And why didn't this bring out the caution? That was a big hit from the 231 car. This would be a very tough break for Riggs, as she would have to pit to get that damage repaired. The last time we saw Todd Wlodarczyk, his car was embedded into tire barriers. But today, he is in contention for a top 5 spot so far. The former TM Master Cup Series driver will be in the 3 car for the rest of the season, and now he finally gets to show what he can do with it as he challenges Joseph Howard, another former Master Cup driver, for position. Armand Mitro has had a rough couple of starts in the part-time Jaguar racing machine this season, but today he is running up inside the top 10. Jaguar Racing as a whole seems to be getting their act together, and Mitro's team is no exception. Gary D'Souza has built up a very comfortable lead until he runs into the back of James West in the 69 car. This brings out the yellow flag, and D'Souza has quite a bit of front-end damage. He will lose a lot of time in the pits getting that repaired, and this hands Packer Carroll the lead on the restart, with Dale Underwood in the second spot. Joseph Howard has made his way up to third, and he is now trying to get past James West so he can challenge with the leaders. Underwood manages to hold off Joseph Howard until James West comes flying in and knocks Howard into the 03. Underwood loses several positions, and James West was called to the hauler. CJ Cameron in the 313 also gets a huge shunt for Toby Armstrong, who completely blows his braking point. Bruce Wilkinson gets into the back of the 313 and goes for a slide. Toby Armstrong was called to the hauler because this was a ridiculous mistake for him, but Armstrong would be bitten by instant karma as he had to drop out of the race. After getting great results in her first few starts, Kayla Bizel has the engine grenade on her today. Tough break for the 672 team as they were on their way to another good finish. Nick Howard in the 611 is having a good run today. He was in the top 10 in points for the early part of the season, but he started to fall off. However, today he seems to be back on track. Todd Wlodarczyk continues to challenge Joseph Howard for the second position. His team owner, Packer Carroll, is driving away from the field, and I'm sure Wlodarczyk would like to get up there and prove his worth to Carroll. Packer Carroll is about to show us why he is driving away from the field by passing 3 lapped cars coming through turn 3. He is not holding anything back, and I can't really blame him. He has not won a race since 2009, and I'm sure Anthony Griffith winning round 1 has really given him some extra motivation. CJ Dejau has worked his way back up into the top 5 after getting tangled with Damian Snyder earlier in the race. And right now the 37 car is actually fast. He has just gotten by his teammate Joseph Howard for the 3rd position. Leigh Gruel becomes the next victim of turn 3 when he gets into the back of CJ Dejau. Gruel has quite a bit of front-end damage, and unfortunately he will have to pit to get that repaired, costing him a top 5 run. Then, CJ Dejau costs himself a top 5 run when he slams into the back of his teammate Joseph Howard. Despite the earlier speed he showed, Dejau is not really helping his case to stay in this 37 car for 2012. It doesn't matter how fast you can go, you gotta stay off of other cars too, especially your teammate. In the closing stages of the race, this is how big of a lead Packer Carroll has on the rest of the field. Todd Wlodarczyk is a very distant second, Damian Snyder 3rd, Joseph Howard 4th, then it is Nick Howard, Gary D'Souza, Wesley Savage. Jarkko Forsström has worked his way up into the top 10, Amy Harrison is up there as well. With just 3 to go, Packer Carroll is walking away with this race. Oh no! Carroll is out of gas! What a huge blow to Carroll and that 71 team. He was on his way to his first win in 2 years, but he cannot go the distance. Damian Snyder also has to pit for fuel out of a top 5 spot. What a tough break for Damian Snyder as well. While all this is going on, Nico Petrov, running a lap down, blows his engine in the 20. But all eyes were on who was attempting to gamble on fuel. Todd Wlodarczyk pitted on the same caution lap as Packer Carroll. But unlike Carroll, Wlodarczyk was able to save enough fuel to roll the dice, and he takes the lead as the white flag waves. Wlodarczyk makes the final charge up the hill. That climb is certainly not going to help your fuel economy one bit. And the 3 car was able to hold on long enough for Todd Wlodarczyk to take his first ARLa Elite Series victory in his second start. This was a bittersweet ending for Packer Carroll. He personally did not end up in victory lane, but he will become the first car owner to sweep both rounds under the new twin race format. Nick Howard manages to save enough fuel to jump up to the second spot. Gary D'Souza makes a very nice recovery to finish in third. Coming to the line, Wesley Savage and Jarkko Forsström had a very spirited battle for fourth, but Wesley Savage came out on top. Great run for Wesley Savage. This is his best finish of the year so far. And this was also a great run for Jarkko Forsström, who finishes in the top 5 in his first start. Amy Harrison, who was behind this battle, gets one of her better finishes of the year, and that team has really needed results such as these. Holden Roberts comes back from his early race incident to finish in 7th. Packer Carroll hangs on to 8th despite having to pit for fuel late in the going. Damian Snyder also hangs on to a spot in the top 10 despite having to pit for fuel. And Joseph Howard fell back to 10th after having to pit 1 lap later than Packer Carroll and Damian Snyder. And now, here are the point standings leaving Verdugo. Rene Ricarmier is still on top, 14 points ahead of Kevin Monroe. That great comeback Ricarmier made keeps him on top of the standings. Allie Riggs is in 3rd, and then it is a huge gap, 102 points back to Brenda Riggs in 4th. Ricky Flush is 5th, Leigh Gurrell 6th, CJ Cameron is 7th, so both White Mountain Motorsports cars are still in the top 10. Andy Pearson is 8th, though that might change because of that ridiculous mistake he made earlier today, and Jacob Eichholz's position is not that safe either, I would think. And then Gary D'Souza makes his way up into 10th, putting both Wiper Ildist cars in the top 10. And now for 11 through 20, Holden Roberts is 11th, 166 points behind the leader. Nick Howard is 12th, so Howard is starting to make a march back up towards the top 10 with his second place finish. Taylor Brilland makes her way up to 13th. Lucas Sweeney is 14th. Mamba Kumengu drops to 15th after being very strong early on in the season. Rip Tyler is 16th. Amy Patty 17th. She is tied with Bigsby Foot for that position. They are both 202 points behind the leader. Joseph Howard is 19th, and Edwin Schwartzlowski rounds out the top 20.